All right, it looks like we're about to get in time. Let's have a look at the players so far, and it looks like they're comfortable for the side of GameLab as they prepare to jump into the draft real soon here. Now, I feel like GameLab have a wide variety when it comes down to compositions, right? So GPX, you can't just prepare for one particular type of composition unless you have hard reads or you go in blind against GameLab.
And that is the scariest thing about going up against a team like GameLab, right? They not only have wide hero pool, they are just individually very, very confident players. And sometimes you kind of don't know where to start in terms of prep, but I feel like for GPX, the best thing they could do, not only to just stick to what they're comfortable with, but just know that the window to punish GameLab is very, very small, and they have to seize those opportunities.
Oh yeah, they definitely do. A whiffed ability, a cooldown not ready to go, a battle spell missing. That's when it gets really, really tough. All right, let's have a look at the overall look for these teams. It looks like GPX on the blue side with GameLab on the red. Farmis and Joy instantly banned out.
And right off the bat, GPX, it's good to see them coming into this with high spirits, though I know I'm not a safety hazard expert, but just be careful with the you know.
Look, sharing is caring, all right? Everybody, if one person gets shocked, everybody gets shocked. They're a team.
Oh yeah, sure, if you don't get shocked by Joy. But you know, all these, in all seriousness, GameLab, good to see that they're in good vibes. You know, they are coming into this, you know, with a clear mind and just treating this as any other game. And again, especially against GameLab, you don't want to be losing out in that mental game, because GameLab, they break you really fast.
Oh yeah, all right. Especially when you realize the level that they're playing at, it almost feels like they're messing with you. So let's see, GPX, they're following up with the Kaja as well as the 1-1 for the side of GameLab. GPX will hold priority and get rid of the Arla. Again, these are all playmaking heroes, right? When you have things like the Farmis, things like Kaja, and as well as Arla, all of which GameLab have shown off before.
And GameLab is the first team that picked up the Arlot, made it into a tank Arlot, and completely just ran over all the other teams. So I like how GPX are really focusing on some of these playmaking abilities, but they did ban out the Kaja, which would open up, you know, heroes like a Ling or Lancelot for Takenaga, and so far he hasn't deviated away from that.
Yeah, GPX start off with a Farsa opener. That's, I haven't seen a Farsa opener in quite some time, and my main issue with the Farsa opener is because there's so many counter picks. And in this case, GameLab, genius of them. Get the Valentina, now you have access to the Feather Airstrike. Get the Grok, now you have the Guardians, the Nature's Barrier to easily cancel out the Feather Airstrike as soon as it pops.
And this is going to be a tough one for Kribu, you know, especially when you are up against Aizawa, again, one of the best performing players overall in this tournament. And GameLab, and I just like how GameLab, no hesitation at all in their first two picks, right? They see the Farsa, they immediately respond with the two most best response.
Strongest response?
Apparently grammar isn't my strong suit either.
Look, I get where you're coming from, right? Is this the most optimal way to handle GPX? And personally for me, from the amount of professional games I've seen thus far, this has been a very effective way to kind of handle it, right? But that means that other priority picks come into play. And that's going to be the Melissa and as well as the Fanny. GPX are taking strong heroes, but I'm really wondering whether they're taking into consideration certain interactions, like number one, Grok, that wall charge can go right through to get away from me, especially if he's near a wall. And more importantly, the power of nature is already a great ability to say, hey, I'm just going to push you out of position.
And we see the Lancelot picked up instantly for Takenaga, right? This GameLab, no hesitation. So far, when you look at GameLab, their drafting has been very swift and precise, right? GameLab not really wasting much time when it comes to picking up the heroes. They are basically prepared to take on GPX. And I also want to echo how you're talking about GPX's draft and how, you know, the individual expression of these heroes. One thing that worries me right now is, with all these mechanics involved for GPX, I feel that they're giving up those simpler executions in terms of a draft.
Well, I don't see any other way around it, right? I feel like GPX in the position that they're in right now, it's how exactly do you deal with looking at a Grok and a Valentina? It's like, oh yes, both of which are targeted towards our, well, in this case, the Pharsa. And obviously Melissa might not necessarily be the greatest in the world. Yes, she is a very good meta pick, but it doesn't necessarily mean that she's out of threat range, right? We need to start talking about the EXP lanes, things that can threaten the Melissa, the Lapu Lapu, the Yuzong. There's so many ways to get on top of her, and with the Grok to help with that added extra bit of dive and the feathered airstrike that's going to be stolen the way by the Valentina, now you're seeing that there's multiple layers that GameLab is applying to their draft.
And honestly, Yuzong would be a fantastic choice, right? With the Petrify, you basically now have another way to drop right on top of the Melissa without worrying that you get pushed away by the getaway. A Diggy and Masha ban, two bans that I didn't expect, but for me, it's more of the Masha from GPX.
Well, okay, so Masha is the bane of existence to gold laners. It is the worst thing to play against because as a marksman, your one goal is to auto-attack people. And Masha can disarm you and say, I don't want you auto-attacking. And with 3 health bars, and most people go for like 4 Sky, like what, 2, 3 Sky Guardian helmets on the Masha, and her Thunderclap scales with HP, so she can basically one-tap your marksmen.
I think GameLab has played him once on her voice.
Look, if I was on GPX, I would get rid of the Masha as well. I don't want to, as a Melissa, I don't want to have to waste my resources on one EXP lane. At most, a Winds of Nature. Anything more than that, wow, it blows.
I guess it's also more of a team-specific thing, right? Because Masha bans are rarer.
Not very common.
Yeah, not very common. The Atlas also is a ban that we haven't seen for a long time. In this case, GPX takes it out. Also, one of the few heroes that just goes right through the Melissa ultimate. It's like, yeah, GPX. Again, a lot of things to consider. You want to protect the Pharsa and the Melissa at the same time. In GameLab, they add another dive element. They have the Kufra.
Yeah, I love it. I love the way GameLab is kind of like putting their minds in on this, right? They could have gone, like, ideally, let's say Atlas was banned. They could have gone for the Atlas as well. They're keeping in mind and staying flexible with their draft, right? The Grok doesn't necessarily have to go into the support position. It can be thrown into the EXP lane. And I think in this case, it's actually not bad going into the EXP lane. And that means the only thing missing for the side of GameLab is going to be their marksman. My guess is that it's going to be the Claude. GPX, they lock in the Terizla to try and control the top side as much as they can. Good trading, good ways to trade against Grok, and most importantly, he has a way to start catching out the members of GameLab.
So at least GPX have a couple of solutions, right? Big Nomona Blast, huge area control, and if GameLab decides to dive in, now there's a way for GPX to kind of counter-engage. But GameLab, again, they left basically Yuktzi's pick for last. He's also not shy to go for something like a Moskov if he doesn't feel like the Claude today. I think plenty of options. I still think the Claude is a better choice.
I think the Claude is the most optimal choice. I don't think Moskov is bad. It really depends on what you're more worried about, right? If you want Claude, you're basically trying to get on top of this Pharsa. You're trying to kind of dodge the Numenon Blast. You have more mobility. If you're playing the Moskov, you're really afraid of this Fanny, and you want to make sure that you Blade of Despair just in time to push her away if she's trying to cable on top of you. But GameLab, as expected, we do see the Claude. And now, with the final lineups, what are you thinking? Because I think that GPX, as strong as their lineup is, it's all about counter-engaging. They want GameLab to make that first move.
And that's something that we did kind of talked about coming into the series, where GPX will probably be a bit more reactive to what GameLab is trying to do, to exploit those windows of opportunity. I personally look at GameLab's draft and I'm like, based on their track record and how clean those games are, GameLab has a good chance of taking this game. It's up to GPX and how much they can exploit the windows that GameLab gives them.
Well, all eyes are on Ray right now. That early game is his to control, and if he can bait out an engagement from GameLab with the rest of his team ready to bounce back, that's their main win condition. That's how they're going to have to deal with their team fights.
Yeah. And by the way, I remember last time we saw, I forgot which team that went up against GameLab, and that team had a Fanny. What happened was GameLab did the same thing, right? They picked the Grok into the Fanny, anti-Kuras, immediately the Fanny becomes basically useless in that mid to late game fight. And this is a game where GPX picked the Fanny directly into the Grok.
Well, yeah, because again, Grok isn't your main target. You're trying to start getting the weaker members like Aizawa as well as Yuktzi, who don't have as big of a life bar, especially in the earlier stages of the game where Fanny's damage is super relevant. Whoa, whoa.
Uh-oh, what? Not looking too healthy. Dolman and Yuktisi looking to whittle him down. No kills. What gets to walk away? But that's already a lane 1 for GameLab.
Oh, that is so very good. I expected Watt to actually die there, but he made sure that when he popped his Inspired that both Dokman as well as Yuktisi were in range of muddles. Oh god, Aizawa.
Instantly forced to flicker. At least, again, while looking at Ray, he does show up. Dolman is right there! Jumps up top of him. First blood for GameLab. Again, the window is very, very small if you're GPX.
Oh, it is, and they don't want to press their advantage there, and especially with Zuri running up to actually contest with this Lethal Wanderer, I'm surprised that he didn't want to actually flicker for this kill onto Dokman.
And that means you basically, for GPX, they concede that bottom side, and Havos is like, alright, we'll take it, right? I'm a Grok, I'm going to cut the wave, start crashing my own wave into the turret, even gets to kind of stall out GPX's next wave as well. It does feel like, you know, he's forcing GPX to make rotations down bot, but he's not the easiest to kill. Ziri is not 4 yet.
He is not, and that's the thing. That's the thing. Rock is really good at manipulating these waves constantly. So as soon as you give up just a little bit of pressure, he will take advantage of that. But our two focus players here, Fredo QT and as well as Dokman, both roamers on either side, they're going to mirror each other for the entire game, right? They have to mirror each other because if they're not at the right place at the right time, it could be detrimental to the team.
Look at this landslide victory for GameLab. At least in the fans' mind, GameLab have already won this series overall.
Well, let's see if the predictions are going to be correct here. But they're not going to pounce on that. Looking at the rest of the map, it looks like they are still in... Wow. Wow.
And again, easily jumps on Kribu, and that's the mirror from Fredo QT. The bulwark basically blocking the entire duration of the Blazing Duet. But Fredo QT is not 4 yet. No access to the Numenor Blast.
Yeah, I like the foresight that GameLab actually has. They make sure that their waves are clean, they make sure that they've done their chores, and then they preemptively start moving into position for potential catches where Dokman is going to try and initiate. I think GameLab understand, even though it's pretty difficult for them, well, sorry, it could be pretty hurtful for them to look for the first engage, but if they're fast enough to get that first kill and then back out, especially with someone like Yuktisi on Claude, who has the battle mirror image, then this could be a way around GPX's comp.
And it's also GPX trying to buy some time for Ray. Did go down earlier on, so already behind in resources compared to Takenaga. But the entire team of GPX around this area, Takenaga is poking the bear just a little bit. Fredo QT is the target. But GPX, they know that they can't really respond to this. Fredo QT needs to walk out.
They're going to try here. They're going to try their absolute best, but GameLab controlling the tempo really well.
Havos right there, Fredo QT. It's going to completely miss the Numenor Blast. And they're going to get him.
The angle was a little strange, I'm not going to lie, but Kribu getting some good damage here.
And Dokman basically just sidestep half of the Feather Airstrike, flickers to safety. GameLab trying to contest the purple buff, but the silver lining for GPX to get the buff for Ray.
Yeah, I mean, it feels weird because GPX was actually mirroring the move of GameLab, but there was no reason to, right? There was no real objective that GameLab was looking for, and GameLab, they purposely are timing it for the purple buff because they know how important it is for someone like Fanny.
GameLab now having 4 members around this turtle pit. Definitely not pressure to make any plays, and you know that the onus is on GPX. Especially when you have Havos around, this guy is going to consistently be a menace. Yuktisi even just shows up mid with the Blazing Duet. GameLab, they have plenty of opportunities to go to, and Fredo QT charging on the Numenor Blast and use the penalty zone, everything on top of Dolman, but Ray does steal the turtle away and they get rid of the Kufra. Now can GPS clean up the rest of the fight? Aizawa forced the flicker, Ray going after him, finds the kill. And GPX wins a small fight.
Very big 2-for-1 here. Very, very big. But a lot of battle spells were used in that fight. The only person who didn't actually have to use was Havos. He got the initial wild charge off. Didn't need a flicker to make any crazy plays, so he saves a resource for himself. Let's see how much that's going to matter in the next 2 minutes.
GPX, you know, I gotta say, they have been keeping up with GameLab so far. Barring the unfortunate first blitz, they don't see much of an advantage in terms of net worth. Maybe that, and Fredo QT just constantly trying to find out where GameLab is, has been keeping his teammates safe. But in this case, GameLab, they do know that this Lolita is going to be on that left river.
Yeah. Now, another aspect of GameLab's composition that we didn't get to talk about earlier is the fact of scaling, right? It's going to be really difficult in the ultra late stages of the game compared to GPX, where a lot of their heroes naturally have plenty of damage built into them. GameLab, on the other hand, their conditions to get that damage out is a lot more, it's a lot difficult, right? Because if we're talking artillery mage versus Valentina, without the ultimate, Valentina is going to struggle to find these picks.
And Takenaga basically quite deep. Have the feather airstrike. Kind of dodged by her voice. Ray not able to find the execute. Again, GPX just pretty decent response, but they would have to give up this top tier 1.
Yeah, nothing they can really do here. A lot of the members of GameLab hovering around this side, making sure that their gold lane is good to ensure that Watt isn't having a good time. Because they know for a fact that Watt is going to be dealing a lot of damage in the later fight. So for now, if they can keep him under-leveled and under-farmed, that would be the most ideal.
So far, this push and pull, kind of a slower game we have on our hands. Third turtle spawning bot side. And Ziri already taken control of that area. You have this penalty zone which can always be a great engage tool. He does have the flicker in hand. Feather QT ready to follow up with Luminum Blast if needed as well. And now with Ray showing up, they're going to go straight in. Her voice is the target. The Feather Airstrike will finish him off. Dortmund counter engages, but GPX, they have the damage output. Dortmund goes for the flicker, swipe, but the ultimate doesn't do enough. Dortmund goes down. Takenaga next to fall. What will find it? And GPX with a big fight at the turtle pit.
Beautifully done by GPX. They really have practiced this comp before. Oh, Karibu, he might be in a lot of trouble here.
It is.
The wall! The wall and the slight slow coming out from Watt just at the end there, so he couldn't go over safely. Doesn't secure the kill, but now the counter engagement. GPX would press their advantage to here on the bottom side.
And now with Watt around, it's going to start becoming a bit of a problem. 2 items. The Demon Hunter Sword and the Corrosion side. Dortmund is right there. Better airstrike used to force TZ back. GPX gets the bot tier 1.
I like that mid-game response. It's been really nice, but now they found another kill onto Aizawa once again. Looks like his KDA is going to get a little tarnished here as Havas is going to get some pressure on the top side of the map.
And at least GameLab open up a part of the map, right? And this top side, you're going to constantly have that wave pushing in. And if Havas isn't in the fight, he is crashing these waves. And for an inhibitor to get threatened this early on before the Lord, it is going to put a bit of pressure on GPX.
Honestly, not as much as you would like to believe, right? Because when it's all the way at the inhibitor 8 minutes into the game, to be able to split push that far down, oh my god.
Alright.
Where did all his life go? He lost 50% of his HP, and that's through the shield that's developed from the Blazing Duet.
People even committing the better airstrike just to clear out the way. GameLab searching for any sort of opening. And at least, you know, we want to see how far can GPX take this. They're dealing with GameLab pretty well so far. They are not putting them on the back foot yet, but this is the most neutral we've seen GameLab.
Yeah, I mean, I think even GameLab recognized the problem trying to cut through GPX's comp, right? GPX needs to play passive here. They're waiting for a response coming in from GameLab, and they don't mind playing this as slow as possible because when they are together, no matter what engagement GameLab attempt to make, it has to be fast.
And Ray able to kind of dodge that wild charge with the cables. Getting the purple buff, that's the most important. Feather QT flickers forward, just missing Dortmund. Spent a little bit. Then Luminum Blast. And with that, the Lord actually, GameLab, they're gonna get a free Lord off of this.
Yep, they do get a free Lord off of this.
TZ, Blazing Duet, is only on top of Feather QT. He's gonna soak up majority of the damage. They won't lose him. And Ziri, big flicker penalty zone. Finding Aizawa, this guy is gone. TZ also follows. GPX responds in kind, and they find Tree.
Huge catch. A huge catch coming in from Ziri here. Honestly, that was the most ideal situation for GameLab. They were able, my god, that was like, what, 7 cables that came out of here? All right, GameLab was able to sneak away this Lord. If they wanted to push back, they could have easily taken the safe path around, but instead they got greedy for this kill, and that's when Ziri saw the opportunity to initiate a fight when GameLab wasn't ready because he was able to catch Dortmund as well, noticing that Havas was on the opposite side, and without any flicker, they could easily expect to see his wild charge coming from a certain direction and nothing else. I mean, look at this, right? The match didn't go as planned. Havas ends up dying, and that's when you see the counter engagement coming in from Ziri. He sees all of them. Karibu, get ready. This is your moment.
And that's what GPX have been wanting to happen, right? Just having GameLab play into them. But GPX does have to deal with this Lord that is whacking this inhibitor. Actually, it will go down.
Yep, they don't have any damage. Watt ended up dying before this, and GameLab, despite having a large majority of their players die prior to this, they were still able to net an inhibitor. So they are in the positive when it comes down to profits.
Yeah, and honestly, net value is great for GameLab. And GPX, Ray just got the Sea Halberd also. One of the latest purchase, Dokman on the side. GameLab just waiting for GPX to overstep and try to protect that tier 2, which will now go down. So GameLab gonna slowly transition into the bottom end, and Ray just losing 60% health with one totem swipe.
Master Assassin. I hate the fact that it's called Master Assassin now and not High and Dry, because again, looking at Havas's build right now, it is oof. Oh, he's gonna get the BOD. Yep, he got the BOD now.
What are you saying about the Masha one tap? I think Grok can one tap also.
Look, it's a little bit more mechanical, and it's not like you're a homing missile. There needs to be a bit of guidance here with this Grok. The Mark II version got banned out, unfortunately, but for the side of GameLab, despite them being down in kills, look, they're at a 3K, I'm rounding it up, a 3K gold lead against GPX, but they can't seem to run away with it just yet.
Yeah. But the good news is that for GameLab, they have just wider map control, right? Just so much more space to wriggle around. revolutionizing doing his very best to open up the map, but he's gonna get caught by 4 members of GameLab. Force the flicker away, turning around, Lumina Blast, only hitting 1.
Oh.
But Zeri counter engages with a 3-man penalty zone. Where's the damage from GPX? Ray shows up and basically just deletes Aizawa. Dolman on the run, Takenaga also trying to use a Thorn Rose to get away, but Kribu finished off the kill. Yuktezi looking for Kribu!
Oh.
But Fredo QT saves his teammate with the bulwark. Havosa show up and basically swipes this Lorita into oblivion. One also gets tapped by the Savos. What did I tell you? The Grok one tap is there.
The Grok one tap is there, but GPX, they played to their strategy and still lost. They didn't have that extra bit of foresight. Like, look at this counter engagement, right? Watt slowly walks up while Ray is in the flank, and as soon as Muddles is down, look at how much damage he does. He chunks out everybody, 50% of their HP, and then let Ray try to clean it up. And this is where they make the mistake, right? Kribu is going in one direction, Watt is going in one direction, and Fredo QT in a completely separate area. And yes, what exactly is Watt doing here, right? He's trying to stay away. He doesn't want to interact with Yuktezi. He wants to get the farm for some reason, where his teammates are basically trying to 2v1.
And the Lord goes over to GameLab, and Dolman taking control of the fight in the back. Aizawa deleted again, and Zeri catches 3 of them. And this Terizla has been a force to reckon with. GPX at least getting away with a kill, but again, Lord will be the concern.
And this is why GameLab, when it comes down to rushing down neutral objectives, they are great at it. And they do it really fast too. GPX has counter-engaged. So much counter-engaged, as a matter of fact, that it's forcing GameLab to actually take a very pacifist route.
Now, all things considered, this is the smallest goal advantage that GameLab has in any of their in any of the series that they've played in. So GPX, at least able to do a bit of number on GameLab, but the job is far from over. Takenaga stealing the purple buff. Dolman engaging onto Kribu, forcing him to back off as well. But the biggest concern is definitely when that Lord reaches the base.
Dang. Okay, so the Lord, they're probably not going to touch the wave on that top side, so they're going to stagger the wave so that they can sync it up with bottom and as well as top side. The tier 2 should technically fall, and Takenaga is the perfect person to deal with it because he shouldn't die. He's just way too tanky for Rexy to actually deal with him now.
Dolman charging up, Tyrant's Revenge at the ready, the wall put up as well. Lord basically knocking on the crystal at this point. GPX might have to give up both the inhibitors just to deal with this Lord. He's taking heap of damage. The crystal actually might die. GameLab, they can rush it down. Takenaga is in. They might get it. Takenaga goes down before the last second. The Iron Hole Havos charges forward. Doesn't get the crystal. GPX just barely hanging on by a thread. Maybe this is the best time to counter engage. Fredo QT finds them, but the rest of GPX will not follow.
Dude, what is happening here? What is happening this game? Like, GameLab, if they just threw all of their members to try and take it out, well, actually, the more that I think about it, the only person who really had relevant damage to take them out was Yuktezi. But even with Yuktezi and Dokman, they recognize that if this fails and their judgment is wrong, they completely lose this game, which is the situation they're in right now. But the waves is so very thin with the second coming in right after.
And what almost solo kills with TZ, GPX breaking the inhibitor. And I just gotta say, not much team can break a GameLab inhibitor. So GPX is definitely doing wonders, but they will lose their bot side one. The base is also kind of in danger. And finally, GPX has a very, very minuscule gold lead.
Like, how did GPX not take out the Lord? Were they not focusing their resources on the Lord? Like, the crystal should not be this Lord. Sorry, not be this low for the second Lord of the game. They saw it walking in. They were able to defend an inhibitor. They lose a bottom inhibitor. And at that point, with the amount of HP you lost, you might as well lose all of your inhibitors in trade.
They barely survive the second Lord, but if this third Lord walks in, I think GameLab would just walk away with the game.
I mean, they're pulling attention to Havas here. They're definitely going to get this Lord.
Yeah, I feel like Ziri has an idea what is happening, but him as himself is not going to be enough. Well, at least Fredo QT is there. Havas is buying as much time as possible. He is going to eventually go down, but now the rest of GPS, you got to pay attention to the Lord. Secured by Takenaga. The attempt to steal from Ray isn't there, but maybe he can get a couple of kills on the way out. Only finding Aizawa though. Aizawa himself is not enough. You do see Watt taking down the bot tier 2. I mean, GPX just finding for scraps.
Oh, they're doing great. And Yuktizi, I mean, he's playing with fire right now. He's got very relevant damage, and Watt is the only damage dealer left other than Kribu when his Feather Airstrike is down. But with Lord Empowered minions and the Lord himself, they should honestly try to rush this if they wanted to end it, because again, the Crystal has taken so much damage, and with 15 seconds, at least 12 seconds for Ray to come back to life, this could be an endgame situation.
Yeah, it's a 3 versus 3 situation. GPX, Ray back in 5 seconds. They just need to buy a bit of time. Yuktizi instant blazing duet, twist the back, doesn't get Kribu, he flies away. Yuktizi goes down, Immortality pop, the Lord taken care of as well. GPX once more with an iron hold on this base. They are not ready to go yet.
Yeah, it feels like GPX is almost baiting out their Crystal just to make GameLab commit to anything right now. They are struggling to close out this game.
If they get Ray, then maybe there is a chance. Ray, I don't think he's getting out of this, but maybe he is.
Yeah, he gets to cover a lot of distance with these cables. Like, he doesn't even need to use the second cable half the time. Just one cable at max range is able to dodge out a majority of abilities.
Good news for GameLab is that all inhibitors on GPX have been taken out, but this is the second time that GPX have been able to defend that base. And if you're a GameLab, you're going to be worried a bit.
I think they are extremely worried, because now they're thinking the only way we close out this game is with the Lord, right? And considering how GPX has scaled very, very well, let's find out.
And one Ziri, if they can burst him down, it's going to be great. And they do. Ziri goes down without using any of the spells, and Dongwei should be able to walk out of this alive as well. Ray not finding any assassination. Fedo QT will be gone on. The rest of GPX basically scattering into the wind. Can they get Fedo QT out? He's blocked by her force. Immortality is popped. They have vision on the side of GPX, but they cannot find any response. Ray needs to go huge, but her voice just waves him away.
Yeah, does he not recognize it? No, he can technically just fly right through him to get a trade somewhere, because these death timers are very, very long, 19 minutes into the game. Like, Ferno QT is not going to be back up in 29 more seconds, so by the time Lord has spawned, he still has an extra 5 seconds to get to the Lord.
GameLab just needs to reset a bit. They pushed in that bottom wave. No one is cutting top wave yet, so it would take GameLab a while to synchronize these minions. But overall, they still have control of the bottom side of the jungle. That's where the Lord is going to spawn.
Alright, and it looks like the inhibitor side here. Okay. They try to get on top of Watt, but
Ziri?
It looks like they're about to get punished for it. Oh my god! They do get the punishment to Yuktizi!
Bad news for GameLab. You do see Havas on that top side. So at least for GPX, well, at least for GameLab, Ray isn't with GPX, so they can't really run for the Lord, but Fredo QT shows right up. Luminal Blast just let it loose very early on, but Doman's gonna be the target. What? Staying a safe distance, Takenaga cannot help. Doman goes down. Aizawa also not able to do much. In fact, Kribu is running after him, forcing out the flicker. Aizawa drops low, and GameLab, for the first time, in a bit of a pickle, basically forced to scatter away. Hervos, what are you doing?
He's got wall charge. He's trying to get out of it, and he managed to get Fredo QT's flicker out of there. These resources are so very valuable here. UTZ coming back up into 2 here. Will GameLab still try to contest?
If they don't, GPX have a good chance to score game 1. Trying to keep Takenaga away. This guy very tanky, and now Feather Airstrike used as well. A lot of resources thrown in. Ray just goes in. Couldn't really get the immortality, but brought Takenaga down low enough.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to contest this lore. Like, GPX is trying to bait out a fight, knowing that Takenaga could come back with Retribution, but we saw that Ray, he still has 10 more seconds until it comes back off of cooldown, and then it should be generally all right. But this is a terrible position for GPX to actually play, right? They lost their window of opportunity to punish GameLab.
And they needed to deal with the side waves as well, so it gives GameLab control of the Lord Pit again. Ray, he will have to take a while to get that purple buff. GameLab withering down the Lord. This is crucial for GPX. Ray really isn't in a position to contest anything. And they lost Lorita straight up. Ziri just get a good penalty zone. Ray needs to go absolutely big, but gets melted by the Blazing Duet. Barely walks away with the cables. GPX not able to find a trade this time.
Unfortunately, I think Yuktisi could have just ran alongside Ray and be able to secure the kill, but he realized that his damage was starting to fall off at that point, so he just focused on staying alive. And now, wait, GameLab, where are they? They're in the middle of this fight, but GPX, again, they've only lost 1 member. It's a 5v4 with no inhibitors, yet GameLab giving so much respect.
They still need to wait for 20 seconds of Fredo QT, and I mean, GPX, they don't have that time. Ray is trying to cut that middle wave at least, draw attention away. Feather Airstrike used as well. Takenaga dives straight to the back. Ray, once more, just walking away with 0 health, but Takenaga in danger. Forced away by what? But the Lord still getting gone on. Ray, can he steal this Lord? He's showing up very close, but Takenaga finds it again! GPX, they need to get these kills, get Takenaga out of this. Winter Trunken keeping him alive. What is still there? Kribu finds the kill, but GameLab still have 4 members left alive. Kribu has vision, but GPX just could not engage.
Oh my goodness, this game boiled down to 1 retribution. 1 retribution. That is why Demon Slayer is such a good ability, a good emblem. Oh, man, especially this late into the game, it makes all the difference. GPX played that as good as it could get.
And especially Ray, just teetering on the skills of life and death. But GameLab now looking to close out game number 1, and this could be too tall of an order for GPX. Even with that defense, Aizawa does go. Maybe there's a chance. GameLab wants the end, but they're not given it easily. Finally takes care of what, but Hervos tanking the Crystal. Yuktisi straight for the jugular. They won this game. GameLab have found it 23 minutes in.
Woo, that was a tough one. GameLab definitely giving a lot of respect over to GPX's draft. They had something that forced them to be less aggressive, forced them to start thinking about the map differently. This was the other side of GameLab that I was talking about. It isn't just all mechanics. They have a lot of macro inbuilt, a lot of purpose, a lot of meaning in their movements.
And this is the closest we've ever seen any team